Good afternoon. My name is Peter Sherris. I'm going to bring the Rotary Club of Oakland meeting to order. We always welcome fellow Rotarians and guests. If you are visiting us, please go to the chat section, enter your name into the chat section, what club you're from and where you're from, and then later in the meeting, Ed Jelen will announce the visiting Rotarians. We start our meetings typically by going through our vision, which is that together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities, and in ourselves. And then we will repeat in unison, Rotary connects us all. Today, we're going to discuss how we're continuing to meet that mission of creating lasting change in our communities. John Holmgren, our chair of Kinder Prep, I had asked you to say our thought for the day. So let's get you unmuted and have you give us the thought for the day. There you go.
Thank you, President Peter. I have a very powerful but brief thought for the day from Helen Keller. All the world is full of suffering. It is also full of overcoming.
Thank you, John. As I think most of you know, we lost our beloved member, Gene Zajas, about 10 days ago. Gene had a huge impact on our club. He was a past president. He was our treasurer. He also had a huge impact on me. His knowledge of the history of our club, his knowledge of the finances, of the traditions of the club, were very helpful to me as a relatively new Rotarian taking on this role. Part of our tradition in this situation is that our members ring the bell in honor of a deceased member. And we did that, we had that tradition last week, and I am very excited to tell you that the club raised $5,200 last week in honor of Gene. We have had we've had several people who have rung the bell in the last few days who have not been recognized. So I'm going to go ahead and recognize Julie Fox, Ryan Spink, former member Anne-Marie Gorman, and John Klassen, who has contributed $200. He gets 2 bell rings in honor of Gene Zajas. If there's anybody else who would also hasn't had an opportunity to honor Gene, please feel free to write your name and your bell ring into the chat section, and we'll come back here at the end. We'll come back there in the end of the meeting to recognize your generous donation. So it's with sadness that we will move on, but you know, Gene was a great supporter of the Cerrone Lehner College Scholarship Program that we have been doing for decades. And we have Steve Blair, who I'm going to now unmute. And Steve, I want you to tell us what's happening with Cerrone Lehner. There you go. Sorry, I couldn't find your name. There you
Okay,
go.
am I on? I'm on now?
You're on
Okay.
now.
All right. Well, so this is the time of year when Cerrone Lehner, when the rubber hits the road for Cerrone Lehner Committee. And this is when we interview high school seniors and award our scholarships. You may recall that for the past few years, we've partnered with the East Bay College Fund, now Oakland Promise, in this endeavor. And in this partnership, Oakland Promise sends us scholarship applications for some of their top students, and then we select a few of the students and fund these scholarships. Then the scholarships are administered by Oakland Promise, and then we supply mentors as well to track the students. This year they sent us 13 applications, and reading through these applications is one of the pleasures of being on this committee. as I realize that all the students are deserving. They all have top grades. They're the first in the family to go to college, and they've become leaders in their schools. One has a personal recommendation from Libby Schaff. Another is already accepted at Harvard. A third is a guide and interpreter at the Exploratorium on weekends. So, and most are dealing or have overcome some very difficult circumstances or hardships. For example, one of them escaped from Yemen via a boat and then spent time in a refugee camp before coming to the US. That student's goal is to become a doctor and to help people in the developing world. Another lives with her slightly older sister because the parents were deported to Mexico. And this student and their sister live on the money that those two make, and the ones in high school. And then that's what they're living on now. And this student wants to get through school and then, move on, she wants to become a criminal investigator. And so our socially distant Zoom interviews will be this Saturday, and we have 10 committee members doing the interviews. We've broken into 3 teams. Each team interviews 4 to 5 students, 30 minutes for each student. Then after the interviews, we have a Zoom evaluation section, and we'll award some number of scholarships, at least 5, and depending on the generosity of our Rotary members, we may award some more scholarships. And often these evaluation sessions, we also assign mentors for the students. And this mentoring is the real rewarding aspect of our work on this committee, as I've talked to you before about some of the students I've mentored. In the past years, we've introduced the recipients at a club meeting, and we plan to do that at the zoo this year. However, in the era of social distancing and Zoom meetings, we're not sure exactly how we're going to do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. It's a great program and very successful. There's a very high graduation rate. So thank you very much, Steve. So as you see this very stylish hat here that I have, well, I ordered a bunch of them. And by the way, Julie Fox, thank you very much. But on the other hand, I do actually have to get rid of these hats. And so part of the way that we are going to be passing them out is anybody who rings the bell in the rest of my school year gets a hat as long as they run out, and that certainly applies for anybody who is ringing the bell for Jean Sajas. I also decided that we're going to need to have other things to do, and so I was a bit jealous of the Bossenecker's Bucks. I couldn't think of anything like that. And so today we're going to give a shot at doing Peter's Trivial Pursuits. And I'm going to be working with Jack Isles, and we're going to be asking some questions. If you can answer them, then if you answer the most correctly, then you'll get to win a hat. And, you know, I've always felt a little bad about teasing Jack McAvoy. Other members on the stage are always teasing him. And so, Jack, I just wanted you to know that I have made a special effort to make this a game that's going to be something that you're going to be very successful at. So I found this Trivial Pursuits game from the 70s. And most of the questions are about the 50s and 60s when you were in your prime. So I think you're going to have a really good chance of winning this game. Now, I have provided my trusty assistant, Jack Isles, with a super secret password protected file. And I'm going to provide that password now. Jack.
Yep.
Jack.
Yep.
Yes. So, do you have the file?
Password doesn't seem to be working, Peter.
You mean what password?
Jack.
No. It's not Jack. I was just trying to wake you up. So the password is, the super secret password is password, all lowercase. So do you have it now?
Yeah, we're up.
Oh, all right, fantastic. So are you ready? So Jack, since we're aiming the questions at Jack, do you think we should allow Googling?
You know, I'm looking at these questions now, and there's no way I'd get them, so we should Google.
All right, we're going to allow Googling. So, Jack, please read question 1.
All right. First question. What tropic passes through Australia? If you
All
don't
right, so if you know the answer to that question, the tropic that passes through Australia, Tom Lamone, man, this guy is fast. It is the Tropic of Capricorn. Congratulations, Tom. Where's he first?
He was first.
I think he was. He was. Okay, second question. What loaded gaming devices were discovered in the ruins of Pompeii? Question number 2. Loaded gaming devices discovered in Pompeii. Holy moly, we got
Right.
Alex Colson. Fantastic, thank you very much. Why don't you do question number 3, Jack?
Where is the Sea of Tranquility?
Aha, that's a,
Oh,
Tom got it, the moon, yes. And then maybe we'll trick Tom on this one. What is the name of Superman's dog? Let's see. Not quite as fast on the answer to this one. No, Jason, it's not Jack. Sorry. It's not even Jack McAvoy. All right, we're going to move on. Ebony. Ebony Cobb, yay, it's crypto. All right, so we're going to come back. If I can find out where I am. Yes, I can figure out where I am. We're going to come back and do the last 2 questions. Right now, Tom is in the lead, but we've got some candidates who are going to possibly take over from him. So, Ed Jelen, I always love calling on you. It's very much fun to ask you, do we have any visiting Rotarians or guests? Got to unmute you, Ed. Let me see. Get it down here. Ed Jelen, you need to unmute yourself because I can't unmute you. There you go. Nice
Anyway,
to see you, Ed.
Peter, I have been checking the webinar chat, and I'm very disappointed to say that although we've got lots of nice trivia answers and lots of nice bell ringers, no visiting Rotarians have checked in at this point.
Oh, well, gee, maybe next week.
I hope so.
Think about it, maybe having visiting Rotarians next week. All right, John Holmgren, you are, COVID-19 must have thrown a lot of virus into the works at Kinderprep. And so I understand that your committee has come up with an idea for how to compensate for that. So I have just unmuted you. So tell us, what have you come up with?
All right, well, just to recap, we started out the year with great momentum by giving all the transitional kindergarten teachers in a number in 35 schools in Oakland a $200 gift card at Lakeshore Learning to buy resources for their classrooms. We also fulfilled a number of what we called wish list requests from about 10 teachers who submitted requests for grants up to $500 for other classroom materials for their classes, and they were all delighted with what we were able to provide them. Our big second half of the Rotary Year activities centered around our field trips to Children's Fairyland and to the Oakland Zoo, and to our summer book program, among other things. COVID-19 threw a wrench into both of those things. None of the field trips could happen because the facilities are closed and the schools are closed. And the summer book program was threatened by the fact that that packing process and putting those packages together for the kids typically happened with a big group of very generous Rotarians. And that packing always took place at Gene Zaha's facility. He always generously made his facility available for us for that purpose. With the inability for us to meet because of not wanting to have too large of a group, not to mention the difficulty of distributing everything to the kids, which we typically did by bringing them to the classroom and having a little ceremony, our great committee member, Mike Mowry, has come up with a workaround for the summer book delivery program, whereby we're going to mail to each student 5 books for them to read during the summer and for them to share with their family so that they still benefit from the summer book program. Unfortunately, we won't have the camaraderie that exists and the ceremony that exists when Rotarians can work with it on a hands-on basis. But we are excited that we'll still be able to do that for the transitional kindergarten student population. As far as the zoo and Fairyland are concerned, they've been very great supporters of our programs for years in terms of providing their facilities and helping facilitate the ability to get the kids to the school and so on. And I know that both those institutions have to be hurting badly this year because of the absence of people being able to attend to go to their venues. And so our committee, the Kinder Prep Committee, has voted to donate $15,000 to the zoo and $5,000 to Fairyland to help in a small way to support their organizations while we get through this difficult time.
John, thank you very much. We will be presenting that to the board in the very near future, those recommendations. And John, I want to personally thank you for taking on the role of Kinder Prep Chair. That is a role that I held for some time, and it's a very big job, and I greatly appreciate you doing that job. And so in your honor, I would like to ring the bell.
Thank you so much. It's a fabulous committee, and it's a very hands-on committee. And so there are a lot of people who share the burden of that committee and the activities. And so I'm very grateful for that.
All right. Well, thank you again, John. So Mr. Jack Isles, do you have another couple of questions for us?
I sure do. Should we go through them now?
Yes. The last two questions, please.
Alrighty. What organization did Ilya Kuryakin work for?
Kuryakin, but that's okay.
Kuryakin.
Up, Ed Jelen got it. Ed Jelen, it's Uncle. Fantastic. Sorry, David, you were a little bit late. And then, Jack, the final question.
Alrighty. Who was the pilot first in the fatal airplane crash?
Who was the pilot in the first fatal airplane crash?
Oh, first.
Nope. Ed put in Powers. Nope. Mike Mowry tried Jack again. Who? Jack? No, it must have been Jack McAvoy who's your Mike. Oop. Laurie Peterson came in with Selfridge. No, I'm afraid that's not right. This is turning out to be the toughest question. It's actually the funniest question, I guess, if you're. Yes, Ed Jelen. Ed Jelen is the winner. It was indeed Orville. Was it Orville or the other Wright? I can't remember. But anyway, one of the Wright brothers was the first pilot to die in an airplane crash. So with that, I'm going to let Jack tally up these extensive responses and get back to us later in the meeting. And now I am going to unmute David Stein, if I can find my cursor. Here we go. David Stein, you, I believe, are unmuted.
Am I on now, Peter?
Yes, there you are. You're on. David Stein, the very ever reliable past president David Stein is going to be introducing our speaker for today.
Thank you, President Peter, fellow Rotarians and guests. First, before I introduce the speaker, I want to note that if you have questions for the Q&A portion, you should be able to see a bar. On mine, it's at the bottom, right next to the chat. It says Q&A. If you click there and type in your question at the end of the presentation, President Peter will select questions for our speaker. It's my honor today to introduce Troy Dayton. Troy has spent 25 years working to legalize cannabis. He is currently the founder and chief strategy officer of the ArcView Group, the first and largest group of investors dedicated to cannabis sector, which he co-founded in 2010 with fellow pioneer Steve D'Angelo. ArcView has partnered with over 1,600 high net worth institutional investors to place more than $275 million behind over 215 ArcView curated cannabis deals. Since 2012, ArcView has been the top publisher of cannabis market research, data, and analysis, making them the most quoted company in the sector. In 2015, ArcView helped launch a partner business accelerator, Canopy Boulder. And in 2019, ArcView launched the ArcView Collective Fund. Forbes named ArcView among the top 5 financial firms in the sector, and Business Insider named them to their top 12 cannabis venture firms. Dayton is also the chairman of the board of Marijuana Policy Project and was formerly its chief fundraiser and among its first volunteers when it was founded in 1995. He is a founding and current board member of the National Cannabis Industry Association, and he co-founded Students for Sensible Drug Policy in 1998, which is now on over 300 campuses. Fortune Magazine, Details Magazine, and International Business Times all list Troy in their top 10 list of most influential people in the cannabis industry. In his free time, Troy likes Burning Man, karaoke, and talking and leading personal growth workshops. And most importantly, you wonder where Troy got his initial business experience and connections? Well, he was the founder and president of the Rotary Interact Club in his high school in Hillsborough, New Jersey. I wish I could hear you all because I know you're giving a very warm Rotary welcome to our speaker, Troy Dayton.
Thank you so much, David. I really appreciate that warm intro, and it's great to be with Rotarians. My late uncle was a part of the Rotary Club, and that's kind of how I wound up getting connected to this idea of starting an Interact Club when I was a precocious, 15-year-old, and did some really, really great projects with that. I really credit it with, some of the growth that I experienced over my life and my sort of orientation to service. And it was just great to be here for this beginning part, to hear you guys, host your meetings and stuff like that, and just great work that you guys are doing. And I'm glad that Rotary exists. And when I was getting started and working on the cannabis world and trying to legalize cannabis, and even the beginning of the cannabis industry, it would have been a wild dream to be able to be invited to be a speaker at a Rotary Club, right? That's how we're winning, right? But it's really good to be here. I assume, since we're in the Bay, that many of you are probably familiar with the cannabis industry in various ways. I'm sure that many of you probably have some investments, if not in the publics. If not in private companies, then in the public companies. But also probably have a lot of questions about how this is all changing with COVID and where the opportunities are in the cannabis sector. And I'll go through that. One thing I will just mention, though, is part of what makes this industry so unique is that it's not just an industry, it's also a movement. It's very rare that you've got an industry that's growing at a 23% compound annual growth rate, where there's also still tens of thousands of people sitting in prison for the very thing that is causing that. So we've got a very unequal, very odd thing. And so part of my mission, and the reason I got into the business side, and the thing I always like to help people see when they're getting into this business or doing well in this business, is that we've got to make sure that we use this opportunity to build wealth also as an opportunity to make sure that we get people out of prison and that we end cannabis prohibition worldwide as soon as we possibly can. I'm going to share my screen here and share a little bit about some of the research that we do in the market. And let me see if I can figure this thing out. We tried it before. Let's see if I can make it work now. Let's see. Share screen. There we go. So you'll see this is an incredible market. Right now in 2020 worldwide, we're looking at a little over $20 billion retail market for legal cannabis. This is medical and adult use. Growing to over, $42 billion by 2024. It's about a 23% compound annual growth rate. And I think it's going to be harder to find things that have that kind of growth rate in the current market. And this is mostly not driven by consumer behavior. This is mostly driven by new states coming online and their markets starting to mature as people move from the illicit market to the legal market as these shift. And then we can look at when you look at the global spending, it's really important to see that the U.S. is pretty much all of it, right? I mean, you see a lot of headlines about different states and different countries that have medical and a couple that are making it legal, but the real market is here in the U.S. And of course, we're the only place that has this weird federal-state conflict going on, where a lot of states have it legal, but the federal government is just sort of looking the other way largely, but kind of stands in the way. And so that's really the big thing that's in the way. It's also part of what has made this such an interesting marketplace where really intrepid investors and entrepreneurs see an opportunity, because it's very fragmented. And that causes problems for supply chains and things like that. But it also creates opportunity for the little guy to have an opportunity to succeed before the big Fortune 500 companies come in and create a lot of consolidation and make it hard for the small people to participate. So there's some silver linings to all of the challenges that exist in this market. What we're going to see in the future, though, is I think Mexico is likely to go legal next. That'll not only put pressure on the United States, but it'll also open up a huge market. And right now, Mexico and Colombia are kind of the long-term, where's the low-cost cannabis from the rest of the world going to come from? And right now, Colombia is trying to be the kind of low-cost producer for the world, but Mexico's much larger and has a much larger domestic market, so there could be an interesting opportunity there once we have international commerce and interstate commerce. That can start making a big difference. So that kind of looks at the regional one, and then you just look here. Oh wait, did I go the wrong way? Let me see. Let me go back one here. Yeah, okay. So then there's CBD. So CBD, cannabidiol, is a largely non-psychoactive aspect of the cannabis plant that doesn't really get you high, and lots of people are selling it outside of dispensaries in normal channels. They're coming out with some new rules about them, the FDA, and so you'll see this on stores and shelves at pharmacies, and you'll see it in shelves, and if you walk down the street these days, they're putting CBD in literally everything, and has a lot of benefits, and also people really like how it makes them feel. And so CBD is a whole nother thing counted kind of separately from all of this, and that is about a $6 billion market today, growing to about $20 billion market by about a $16 billion market. Wait, sorry, this thing's in the way here. Yeah, about a $20 billion market by 2024. So CBD is going up, and you don't have the same legal challenges. There's some regulatory issues, but you don't have the same kind of issues that you have with cannabis. And then let's look at California, since that's kind of where we're at. The California market you'll hear a lot of people talk about how it's been a total mess and lots of companies are going out of business, and it's a very difficult rollout here in California. And at the same time, if you look at these numbers, not so bad, right? I mean, that's still a market that's growing, right? The problem is that the regulations are been so crazy, the tax is so high, very little enforcement against the illicit operators who are advertising, and so it's created a really difficult environment to be in business here in California, and so nonetheless, though, over the long haul, this market's going to do very well. Let's see, and you can see if you look across the U.S., you see the growth rates, you know, between 2019 and 2024 across all these different states. Really powerful illustration of each of the different states and where they are in their maturity, and also what the CAGR is, the compound annual growth rate. It's really powerful. So now let's talk a little bit about what's happening in the market. So you see all these where the market's going to grow, and we don't think that, you know, COVID's going to have that much impact on most of the sales of cannabis, the retail sales of cannabis. Like, people love cannabis. In fact, sales shot through the roof. Everybody broke records in sales in the lead up to lockdown and during lockdown, because people were really stocking up on cannabis. And what's been interesting is that we've been seen in most places as essential. So to have gone from illegal just a few years ago to be considered essential, I think is a powerful shift in mindset. And there's only one state, I think, so far that has said that it's not, that has shut down all the businesses, and that's in Massachusetts. But for this, so I think there's real power there, that this becomes a staple in society, and a safer alternative to alcohol for many people as well. So, and so you have this amazing story happening when it comes to sales, but a very different story when it comes to investment. There was a bit of a bubble in 2019, and in the beginning of 2019, and that popped, kind of in the summer. And these stocks that were getting crazy overvalued in the cannabis sector just finally started to come down to earth. And you got a falling knife scenario going on, where just a huge sell-off, really tough time. Everything changed in terms of raising capital. But what also happened is that valuations came down on companies that have fantastic sales numbers, right? So a lot of people see that as a good time to buy. Certainly this COVID situation, when this was going on, you had, cannabis was going down, but everything else was going up, right? Now you've got pretty much everything going down, and cannabis is also going down, but it was pretty down to begin with. And so a lot of investors that we're seeing are really seeing this as an opportunity. And so one of the reasons why, even though sales are increasing in California, but a lot of companies are going to go out of business, is because a lot of these businesses are running on investment money. And so if the investment money dries up, and even if you're selling a lot, like, their businesses are in these early phases where they're trying to gain market share and everything. So a lot of people are having to really change their business models. And so as investors, I always encourage people, make sure you're not putting the last money in, right? And that's why we bring investors together, so we can help look at this kind of stuff and negotiate together, et cetera, with companies. But you can see, the dot-com crash, and then look at what happened, but a few years later. And so this has got something similar to it, which is that there's going to be a lot of carnage, but in the end, the fundamentals are very, very strong for the industry. And so there's going to be real huge winners. And that's why it makes it so important to make the right choices in the short run, to invest in companies that are going to be set up. The other thing about the cannabis industry is that there's really a dearth of talent, right? And I think COVID's changing that, right? I mean, a lot of people are like, a good opportunity to get in, and a lot of the companies that are hiring are doing that. But that's where you come in, as you think about how you want to play in the cannabis sector, as an investor, as an advisor, as an entrepreneur, or as a C-suite executive in these companies, can be really powerful. And then also, the other thing I remind people too is that everybody always thinks the cannabis industry is like, you're going to be a dispensary operator, a cultivator, or a product manufacturer. But I often encourage people to ask themselves, what do I already know? What does my existing business do? And how can what I already know or my existing business or my existing skills be able to be applied into the cannabis sector? Because it's such an underserved sector, and you'd be shocked at all the opportunities, whether it be, software or equipment or, you name it. I mean, there's all kinds of professional services. The sky's the limit, because this it's not like the oil industry, right? It's like this industry touches everything. And one of the next big things is hemp. Now that we have domestic hemp production for the first time in the US in a long time, and also there's new technology coming out, hemp may change textiles, may change building materials, all these things where we're leaning more towards sustainability. So I think that's my prediction about kind of what the next wave of the people who are trying to be pioneers now are doing, is they're really looking closely at hemp. And then, maybe I'll pause there and see about what people have question-wise, because this is one of these topics that we could talk for 4 hours if we wanted to. I know I could. So I'm curious what you want to know about the cannabis sector.
Sure. That's great, Troy. Thank you very much. We do have a question from Jason Weiselman. Banking is a huge hurdle.
Yes.
What are you doing to help mitigate this issue? Are you seeing green banks coming online?
Yeah, so we've seen, there's certainly most dispensaries and most businesses in the cannabis sector are able to find banking. The problem is that they have to pay enormous amounts for it, or they have to work with, banks that are not as, don't have all the services that they need. And they're not usually able to get loans or anything like that. So it's very tough. And many companies have 3 or 4 bank accounts because, they'll get signed up on one, and then the compliance director comes and kicks them out. I mean, even my own company had been kicked out of like 5 different banks over the years. And so now you just always have to have multiple accounts. And it's not that it's illegal for them to do it. It's just that they don't want to go through the rigmarole that's been set up for the banks to be able to do it. And so there's a big push at the federal level for safe banking. It's one of those things everybody agrees with, like even people on the other side, like cannabis isn't all that dangerous, but dealing in cash is terribly dangerous. That is like really dangerous, right? And so everybody agrees with banking, makes perfect sense. It increases the cost of doing business in really significant ways. There was some real hope that we were going to get banking done at the federal level. I think right now, nothing's getting done at the federal level for quite some time. But what I will say is that I think we've got the best chance we've ever had to pass full legalization. Part of how alcohol prohibition ended was because, they needed to fund the government after the Depression. And so this became a really changed a lot of people who were opposed to it, came around when they realized that, like, okay, we got bigger issues to deal with here. Let's get the tax money. And I think we might be in a similar situation coming out of all these big stimulus packages. And we might see federal law change in a big way. And banking will be the smallest of our worries at that point.
Troy, are you still sharing your screen?
I am. I can stop if you'd like.
Yeah, why don't you stop? Because otherwise some people aren't going to see you. You can always go back to it if you want. There you go. There's your good looking face. So I have another couple of questions here from Lori Peterson. Should cannabis tech startups planning to raise seed round in the next few months hold off? Is it an appropriate time to reach out to investors?
It's always an appropriate time to reach out to investors, especially investors who are bored, sitting at home, where your competition is also probably wondering what to do and not probably reaching out. So absolutely, it's always a good time to be developing relationships with investors. I will say that investors, for really early stage companies, it may be a particularly difficult time to raise money unless the problem that you're solving is really sticky and really fine-tuned to the kind of crisis shift that many companies are in right now, trying to figure out how to adjust to the new world. If you've got something that's really sticky for that, go for it. And one of the nice things about small businesses that are just getting started is the ability to pivot to what the market needs now is so much easier for you than some of these bigger companies, right? So I would say absolutely is a good time to be talking to investors, and also good time to be talking to us. Feel free to reach out. We're hosting things every week where we're putting a few deals up in front of our investors, and then also looking at them for our small kind of member managed fund that we have. And then we also have our Canopy Boulder, which is our seed stage mentor driven accelerator, which would be not a bad idea to take a look at for early stage tech companies in the space where they're investing into companies as well.
All right, so we have a question from the amazing Kimberly Cohen. Thanks, Troy. As a fundraiser for Oakland Family Paths, an essential social service nonprofit supporting East Bay's most vulnerable kids and families, I'm curious if you can make recommendations on how best to address some of the complications for nonprofit organizations receiving cannabis charitable contributions. And might you have any updates or suggestions amidst COVID?
I didn't realize that was a challenge. I mean, I think sometimes we've had, when we made a donation to something or whatever, and they said, oh, their board wouldn't allow for it or whatever, but that was back in the day. I can't remember that happening anytime recently. I guess maybe if you're getting government funds, maybe there's some issue there. I mean, I might suggest that because what your services are so important, there's a lot of things. I think one of the opportunities in this COVID thing is realizing what regulations are important and what ones aren't. And how all of a sudden we're like, oh yeah, that we don't care about that rule anymore or that rule anymore because, it's about getting services to people. This might fall in that category where you're like, hey, wait a second, why would we not take money from a legal business in the state of California to be able to help people? And to be able to push that, if it's a federal issue, push it with your member of Congress. If it's a local issue, push it locally. If it's a board level issue, you've never had a better opportunity to say how important it is to, not let politics get in the way of delivering services.
Thank you. From David Stein, what are the companies that are publicly traded in the cannabis space? What do you see as the main non-production sales areas besides hemp?
What was the last question?
What do you see as the main non-production sales areas besides hemp?
Okay, so on the publicly traded stocks, I mean, you can just do a search for the publicly traded. There's tons of them. There's lots of publicly traded stocks in the cannabis sector. And they kind of fall in sort of two main categories, and that's Canadian ones and US ones, which and a lot of them are all on the CSE. You've got a couple on the major exchanges, but those are not ones that are touching the plant for the most part. They're technology or real estate or these sorts of things. And so there's opportunities there as well. And then the other question about, aside from hemp, non-production based things that are exciting. I mean, anything around really defendable IP, right? It's not about, like, when people talk about, we're getting a brand and we're doing this, it's like the brands that exist now, they're probably not going to be the brands that ultimately dominate this market. So what you really need is really defendable, like product IP, right? Products that do what they say. There's so much innovation happening right now with this plant and with the elements of it. And there's all kinds of other cannabinoids. It's not just THC and CBD. So one area that people are very interested in is CBN and CBG and THCA, and there's a whole host of them that people are looking at and creating products out of. Also different delivery methods. These are the kinds of things that I think are really valuable. And then also extraction technology, anything that we've just begun with this plant. We've really just begun.
All right, Troy, I'm going to squeeze in one more question.
Yeah.
So keep your answer to about a minute or so. It's from Robert Kidd. The city of Oakland has made a point to advantage lesser capitalized individuals and formerly incarcerated individuals in the awarding of retail licenses. What is the status of that policy? Is it working out as advocates had originally argued?
Yeah, it's one of the most challenging things that I can't answer that in a minute. It's one of the most challenging things that we have as an industry, for sure, because everyone recognizes the need. But actually making sure that you're developing programs that actually achieve the goal, and achieve it in a way where there's just not more exploitation embedded in it, and that you're setting businesses up for success. I'm not sure we've nailed that yet, not in Oakland nor anywhere. But I think there are really great efforts and attempts at it. And over time, I think these programs will get refined and we'll figure out the best ways to make sure that the people who've been so disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs get a chance to participate in the market. And one of the things I think is most important for that is that we don't set limits on so high for people to get licenses, that we actually make it a lot easier for more people to get licenses and have more of a free market. The more we do that, the more this stuff you get access to a wider group of people and not just the people who already have everything.
Okay, so thank you, Troy. We actually have 2 or 3 more questions. I wonder if you might be willing to let us copy them and submit them to you, and you can write a brief answer.
Sounds great. Yeah, and then
All right.
And then I would love to invite everybody on 420 next week. We're doing a big thing. If you go to arcviewgroup.com, you can log on, and we're going to be doing a whole day of this stuff. So hope you join us.
All right. Well, thank you very much. So, Troy, in your honor, we would like to make a donation to End Polio Now. One of the objectives of Rotary International is the eradication of polio from the world. It would be the second disease ever eradicated in the history of humankind.
Wow.
We have been working on it since 1987, and we are this close. So we have made a donation in your honor, and thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you so much. That's very sweet. Great work.
It's our pleasure. All right, so next week, we do not have a speaker, but we are having a panel discussion where a number of our members are going to be discussing how businesses can survive this crisis. They each have certain areas of expertise, and I think those of you who are having some difficulties here can benefit from their advice and their suggestions. There, of course, will be lots of questions answered, and you'll have the opportunity to do that. So join us. That's next week. It will be both on YouTube Live and here on our Zoom webinar platform. So Jack, are you still awake?
Yes, Peter, still awake.
By the way, Jack, I really like that haircut. That looks really, really good on you.
Thank you, Peter. So
who won the hat?
we're gonna give out 2 hats today.
Wait a minute. 2?
2 hats, I know. We've got a tie between Ed and Tom. Both of them had 2 correct answers.
All right, Ed Jellin and Tom Limon. Tom, I'm happy you won. So big applause for Tom and Ed. All right, so well, I'll have to ask Tom. Did he have to use Google? Was he that fast? I'll have to ask him. All right, so you also, Jack, have been helping keep track of the bell ringers, and we're going to try and do another little bell ringers award ceremony in honor of our amazing and beloved Jean Zaha.
Yeah, by my count, we have 9 new bell ringers. And I'll rattle off the names and give a brief pause so Peter can ring the bell. But John Holmgren, Donna Gianoulis.
Yeah, Donna Gianoulis. Donna is a member, was a member of our club for many, many years. And Donna, I chatted with her. She's currently sort of stuck in Mexico. So thank you, Donna.
There we go. David Kittner. Steve Blair. Keith Gearin. Jim Cabangio.
Caponegro, Jim Caponegro, ORE chair.
And then you, President Peter.
That was for John Holmgren.
And then Ed is also watching with Donna. So another ring there. YZ Allen. And then Mike Morway makes 10 bell ringers today.
Fantastic, Mike Murray. Thank you very, very much. All right, so that happens to be the end of this meeting. I hope you enjoyed it. Please come back each week as we announce various events and various episodes. And thank you very much for attending. It's my pleasure. And thank you to all of our panelists. I saw David Steinway, Ed Jelen, Wave, Dudley. Thank you very much. And as of now, this meeting is adjourned.